The forests of the Pacific Northwest were vast, old, and patient. Towering pines and cedars stretched skyward like green cathedrals, their trunks furrowed by time and storms. In the quiet valleys between them, rivers moved with the slow wisdom of glaciers, whispering secrets only the earth could understand. These woods were not untouched by humans, but they had a way of humbling even the most persistent. Mira Everhart knew this forest better than most. A wildlife biologist by training, she had spent the last decade tracking elk herds, mapping salmon spawning grounds, and documenting the lives of animals many would never see. She lived alone in a small cabin beyond Cedarglen, the last town before the wilderness thickened into mystery. People in town called her the Wild Woman, not unkindly, but with that mix of awe and distance reserved for those who live differently. On a late November afternoon, Mira set out on the Whispering Trail, her worn boots crunching over frost-tipped needles. She was tracking the seasonal migration of a small elk herd known to cross the Silver Basin, where the river made a gentle bend and the trees grew thick. The cold was biting, the kind that seeped through gloves and jackets, and the sky was already turning that pale lavender of a winter dusk. Just as she marked the trailhead with a note in her journal, a sound pierced the wind, not the shrill cry of a bird or the rustle of deer hooves, but a raw, hoarse howl that ended in silence, as if it had torn itself apart mid-note. Mira froze. She recognized the sound, a wolf. Not a distant call, but one near, and in pain. Her breath caught in her throat. Wolves had been slowly returning to the region after decades of near eradication, and sightings were still rare, precious. But this was not the howl of a creature staking territory or calling a mate. This was different, desperate. In the heart of a crowded city where noise and smoke filled the air, and feet rushed across the pavement with little care, there lived a stray mother dog with 3 tiny cubs. She had no name, no collar, and no home, only ribs that showed beneath her dusty coat and eyes that never stopped watching. She had once belonged to a house, long ago, before she was left behind when the people moved. Since then, she had made a life from what scraps the world threw away. But things were harder now. The rains had swept the gutters clean of edible waste, and people had grown impatient with stray animals begging near tea stalls. Still, she endured, not for herself, but for the 3 tiny lives that nestled beside her under the old banyan tree near the train station. Her pups, 2 brown, 1 speckled, were too young to understand hunger as anything more than a cry in their bellies. They tugged at her, whined softly, licked her dry nose, and looked to her with blind trust. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. That morning, she left them hidden in a corner behind the banyan's thick roots, licking each gently before trotting out into the morning chaos. She moved quickly, ears low, body close to the ground, nose twitching for scent. She sniffed near garbage heaps, behind snack stalls, even around bus stops. Nothing. But then, she caught a scent. Warm rice. Meat. She followed it to a construction site where a man sat on the edge of a low wall, eating from a steel tiffin. His hands were dark with work, his shirt damp with sweat, but his face was calm. He scooped a bite into his mouth, chewing slowly, looking out across the road. The mother dog stopped a few feet away. She didn't bark or whine. She just stood there, ribs showing, ears drawn back. Her eyes, tired, hollow, and humble, fixed on him. He noticed her, paused mid-bite. "What now?" he said softly. "Another beggar." But when he looked closer, he saw not just a hungry stray. He saw her trembling legs. He saw the teats on her belly, swollen from feeding young. And then he saw them. 3 tiny pups, cautiously padding out from the banyan tree, blinking in the sunlight. One tripped over its own feet. Another yawned. The third sat down with a squeaky huff. The man set his tiffin aside and stood. He didn't chase them. He didn't scold. He walked back to the construction tent and returned with another box, yesterday's lunch, untouched. Chapatis, bits of lentil, some dry chicken. He knelt and placed it on the ground. The mother dog approached first, nose twitching. She took a cautious bite, then looked back at her cubs, and, almost in a gesture of discipline, backed away, letting them eat first. They scrambled forward, yipping, their tiny tails wagging as they devoured the meal. The man watched in silence. After a moment, he tore his own chapati in half and tossed her a piece. She caught it gently between her teeth and lay down nearby, finally letting herself rest while her pups fed. He didn't pet them. He didn't try to own them. But every day after, he came back to that tree with leftovers in hand. The pups grew. The mother grew stronger. And the banyan tree, with its sprawling roots and dappled shade, became a quiet place of kindness in the middle of a restless city.